Good morning, good morning, good morning. I believe that we are already live on social media apart from LinkedIn. And LinkedIn will be going live in 2 seconds. There we are. So, good morning, we're everywhere. We are live on LinkedIn. There we go. We're now live on YouTube. We are also live on Instagram and on Twitch and on StreamYard and on Facebook. So I think we've managed, and YouTube. So I think we've managed, there we go, go live. I forgot to go live. Can you believe? I've kept people waiting on LinkedIn. My apologies, everyone. I managed to go live everywhere else, and I didn't manage to go live on LinkedIn. So I'm going to start that again. We are live. Good morning, everybody. We are live on Twitch. We are live on LinkedIn now. We're live on Facebook. We are live on, hang on a second, there we go. We are live on Instagram, potentially. We're everywhere. Good morning, Marie. How are you?
I can't hear you, lovely.
It's a good job you came up. You know, this is the third time. So the first time, I didn't go live. I went live everywhere. We're live everywhere. Twitch, YouTube, you name it. And then, good morning, Christian. I didn't go live here. And then I did go live. And then I was live and I was mute. So given that we have, good morning, Trey, given that we have gone live 3 times and failed, we shall start again. Good morning, everybody. Please come up. I can't ask you to come up, Trey. You have to raise your hand here. So I don't know whether you're going to manage it, but I hope you can. Good morning, Clive. We shall begin. We are live literally everywhere today, guys. And I'm definitely just going to see if I can see myself. There we are. Yes, I can, but without wobbling my laptop. Yeah, we're live on Facebook. We're live on Twitter. We're live on Twitch. We're live on YouTube. And we are live on LinkedIn now. And we can hear each other. Christian, are you there?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So look at us being live everywhere, all at once, everywhere, all the time. And being able to hear us.
Omnipresent inclusionist.
We are definitely omnipresent. We're omnipresent all over the internet now. And actually, I've learned to cut these posts up. So please, yeah, thank you, Christian. Good morning. Good morning, Tony. Please do. You've managed to mute yourself. Look at that. We've managed this morning to arrive here, to be everywhere all the time, doing everything. We're on Twitch, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. I'm just going to keep saying it so I remember. We're on Twitch, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. Twitter's, of course, X. We're on Messenger. We're on StreamYard. We are on LinkedIn. I just think, we're on YouTube. I just think we're smashing it. It's great to see everybody here already this morning. We haven't even got started. It is 3 minutes past 8. It's Saturday morning. And we're live on LinkedIn. I can't even believe it. Do you know the only place that we're not live is Clubhouse? Because I can't actually do that at the same time. So anybody that wants to open a room on Clubhouse in inclusion that's a member and just stream this, just open it up, is welcome. But of course, it's not important if you don't, because we can always restream it later. Listen, I am learning so many things now. It's really very good. Oh, so we've lost. There we go. There we are. Wow. And we've even good morning, good morning, good morning. Those that haven't been here until. And we've managed to get Traherne onto the stage. Good morning, Trey. Before I begin, can you unmute? Good morning, Bob. Can you unmute? Do you know how yet? It's not easy.
Good morning. I think I just unmuted.
I think I'm incredibly proud of the fact you managed to find the unmute button and get on stage. Good morning, Trey. How are you?
Good morning. I'm all right. Yeah. How are you?
Good. I'm good. For those who don't know who you are, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name's Traherne Culver. I am the company director of TK Technology Services. And today, I believe we're going to be talking about harnessing the collective, which should be interesting.
Absolutely, we are. We are. Marie, do you want to say hi? because we've got an audience, right? And you're being streamed all over the world. So.
Oh, hi. Good morning. Good happy weekend day. That weekend feeling, that weekend vibe. It's always good, isn't it? Yeah. Morning, everyone. It's lovely to see everyone here.
Yeah, good morning. And so Marie works with me. Marie's a strategy coach for Accessibility Partners. I'll introduce her. And she's a trainee psychologist. She's working through with the Open University at home, often in her bed. And I'm in my bed. Well, I'm on my bed at the moment. And I would bet that Trey is either next to his bed or on his bed or at a desk by the side of his bed. And Christian works with me with Accessibility Partners, and Christian has a new desk and a chair in his lounge working from home. Do you know, we all are working from home, and it's an interesting dynamic, isn't it? Because it was only 4 years ago that Student Finance England and Wales, I would imagine, probably Scotland, although I don't know, they're a bit different. Student Finance England wouldn't allow me to work with students. I'm a teacher. Wouldn't allow me to work with university students. I'm a SENCO, actually, a special educational needs coordinator. They wouldn't allow me to work with students when they were in the bed. And yet, many of my students who have disabilities often had to be in their bed. In fact, once upon a time, I went to the House of Lords to be thanked for a young lady with ME who did get some GCSEs from her bed. And actually, there's a gentleman in the audience who I would love to come up, Lenny, at some point if he wants to, who knows the history of all the help that's ever been proffered to disabled students in the UK, certainly by myself and others that work with me. And now we in Accessibility Partners are moving and have been practicing for 20 years in the world of access to work. And access to work, workfulness, and I don't mean your job, because I've had lots of jobs. We get different jobs. I think you get 4 careers in a lifetime now, 4 careers on average. So, you know, whatever you think you are, you're probably not going to be in a little while, or you're going to be a derivative of or an extension of, depending on whether you feel you're on your right path. But this morning we're talking about, this is Belonging in Business, by the way. Belonging in Business is here every Saturday at 8 o'clock, and we've moved our space, really. We've been for 2.5 years hanging around the halls of Clubhouse, developing this narrative, developing our collective, developing our movement, moving on from COVID, moving into a post-COVID world, and creating the best global pandemic that there is, actually, the only one, which is inclusion. And I've been probably talking about this, well, certainly over 20, 30 years. My eldest child was born and diagnosed neurodivergent. I just thought he was a genius, virtually non-verbal, and now an accountant. But at the time, very, very frightening. I didn't know what was happening, and I didn't know what to do about it. And I certainly didn't know how I was going to school him. And I was talking to somebody last night who was also in the audience that has harnessed the power of homeschooling. And I think there's really important conversations to be had this morning. And I think everybody here probably has something to contribute. So I'd love us to contribute. I'm not going to talk for too long, because I'd like us to really get this conversation going. Because for me this week, when I think about how I'm going to get this done, well, I have to harness the collective. By that, as I move into the realms of Welsh Government, for those that don't know, I am Mandy-Jayne. I'm a specialist teacher, a SENCO, an Elenco in Wales. That's an additional learning educational needs coordinator. I'm therapeutically trained. I have trained other therapists. I am a supervisor for some. And I'm a trainee social worker for my sins. And we are streaming on a number of platforms. And to be honest, this is possibly the most uncomfortable process I could put myself in. I am no marketeer, I can tell you. I'm no social media guru. I've just got some important things to say, and I think they're going to impact us now and in the future. And I want to say them, have them recorded, share with other people about my musings, and then, well, maybe we can hear our voices. And I've had to be thinking, as I have been accepted now for Equal Power, Equal Voice initiative, in order that women can move into the political realms. My intention eventually is to become a special advisor to government. Governments all over the world, actually, a global advisor for inclusion. But I think local government don't know how we are going to do what we're going to talk about here. And let's be honest, neither do we. I don't. I don't know how, as a social worker who's training and seeing that the NHS is going to collapse, that's a guaranteed. You heard it here, I'm sure you heard it everywhere, but it's already has. It's now a 3-tier system. Some people pay, some people part pay. For those that are dying, they definitely pay, unless they're in palliative care, and then, well, it's a very quick demise, frankly. Education is a car crash. I'm a teacher, and I know that, actually what school teaches children is to shut up, sit down, put up, shut up, take what's being given, swallow it, and then regurgitate it, even if they say different. And it's actually a place to put the children whilst they put us to work, right? So there's health, there's education, and then there's training and workfulness. And this is what we're talking about today. How do we harness the collective? How do we make workfulness, which I can only see as the only vehicle by which we lift our 1 in 5? I do not see another way. The welfare state is being absolutely, well, eradicated. And there are some important things going on that I've been talking about for the last 2 years. And when I say the government don't know what they're doing, they don't. And in fact, they're putting it into our hands. And I'm going to explain how just in a minute. So the statistics tell us the stories that we need to know, don't we? Don't they? Over a quarter of people in Wales who are disabled are lonely. And in fact, something like 6,000 people in the UK are going to decide to take their lives. Well, they did last year. 20 people in the UK today will decide this is it. And 10 of those people in the last 10 years were voluntarily euthanasiaed, whatever you call it. They took euthanasia because they were lonely or too disabled to live. All right, it wasn't because they weren't life limited, they weren't dying, they weren't terminal, they were just broken or lonely. 10 people were legitimately killed on the back of being lonely or disabled. That statistic I don't think will ever leave me. So I think belonging anywhere, in business or otherwise, is really important. But I think it's even more important when we know that workfulness, belonging in school, God forbid, or a religion, or a group, or a cult, even a culture, which is what we are here, has enormous protective factors that can stop those 20 people today from making a decision not to be here. It can stop a government deciding that somebody is too lonely or too broken to want to choose to stay alive. And they can stop authorising their demise. So belonging is important, right? And we also know that having effective coping skills, knowing what to do, having problem-solving skills, knowing how to solve those things that we know what need doing, as well as having a reason for living, that's friends, family, pets, I don't care what it is, anything that fosters a sense of cultural identity, whether it's our own individual, I'm here because I have a story to tell, I have a reason, I have a raison d'etre, I have a purpose bigger than me, my horizon is bigger than when I woke up this morning and thought about myself. Or relationally, as I believe that there are people that rely on me and on you and on one another. I know how much workfulness there is for Marie and Christian and Traherne and I to do next week, and many more of you, and more people are joining us. In fact, we're having a new starter at 5 o'clock on Monday morning. Just letting Marie know that right now. So we're growing, but that cultural identity comes from, I believe, our workfulness. How do we do that? How do we promote belonging? How do we create an inclusive culture, an inclusive cult? How do we do that? Well, I think employers need to know how they can afford to employ disabled people and whether that's going to touch the bottom line. That's for the workfulness, right? But to do that, us disabled people have to first get a seat at the table, and everybody on this stage today has a disability. Margaret Mead, who was a controversial anthropologist, all right, there's a 2013 paper about her that said she was a bit hoodwinked. Well, do you know what? For many years since the 40s, she made some marvelous investigations about how humans work and how we work in families and how we work as parents and how we are as children and what the adolescent experience is. And she studied human behavior. And I believe that as a neurodivergent individual who's high functioning, I don't like that phrase, but I'm savant autistic, that I observe humans as if I am an alien. Actually, I often feel I'm treated as an alien, and I think that gives me a sense of separation and an idea that I can observe myself and others maybe from a third person perspective. And many autistic people are known in their childhood to speak from a third person perspective, actually name themselves. So Mandy-Jayne is going out to shop. MJ really doesn't like what's going on here. And I do it now. MJ's not impressed. She's not having it because it's a way of coping with the anxiety of the felt sense. So I think it gives me an advantage. But Margaret Mead, I think, perhaps was one of me. I'm just saying. I've never met her, I don't know, but from my studies of the way that she worked. And she suggested that adolescence, this is important, is less about the genetic clock, actually. It's not about whether somebody's, moving into adolescence at a certain time, and we know that children are getting younger and younger and younger and younger as they move into adolescence with the increase in hormone in meat and all of the rest, all of the reasons that I began my journey in adolescence at 9 years old. I was genetically just not on the same clock. But it's less about the genetic clock. It's actually about the cultural impact. And she expressed this eloquently, I think, when she said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Now, so she realised that family, connection, culture, the collective effort, harnessing the collective, being the collective, wanting change, having a hope, having a desire for a different world than the one that perhaps you're experiencing right now. That begins right here with you, with me. A collective effort that we've got today, right now, as I learn to navigate this world of social media and personal and professional expression. Look, you can share this room, you can share it with your friends, you can share it with your family, you can share it with your loved ones, you can share it with people you hate, you can share it with people who you know have to belong, because belonging's not just a buzzword. It can't be. It just can't be. If any of you go to work, if any of you live in the world, if any of us want to move through the world today, we need to create a society that reflects society. And that's not just because I'm a Senko. It's not just because I've been therapeutically trained. It's not because I'm an airy fairy angel lady. It's not because I'm disabled and I want you to accept my wheelchair, although believe me, I do. Until society reflects society, those 20 people will continue to make that decision today, particularly in the workplace. And I've just recently worked with somebody who will forevermore, I know, live with the horror that somebody in their department took their life and they didn't notice. Right? Didn't notice that Steve was going to die at his own hands, of his own volition, because he couldn't speak up anywhere. And he didn't speak up anywhere, because if he had felt psychologically safe, and if that manager was somebody that connected with him, would there be of an opportunity? I don't know. And neither do they. But those 20 people will continue to make that decision until, particularly the workplace, remember it takes all week. I joke, but I hope you like what you do and you do what you like, because if you don't, what you're buggering about at, because you're at it all week. Well, if you work full time, you are. And even if you work part time, actually, I think you work longer. You end up getting paid less and work longer when you take a part time contract. Remember, anything commensurate with the post. It takes up all week. And in fact, where diversity and inclusion doesn't really feature, those workplaces are going to become less and less relevant. I predict it, I'm telling you now. Less and less relevant as they become autotrons, as they become automated, as they become an Amazon warehouse, as they become less and less human beings. They will become less and less relevant in human endeavour, because true belonging is about recognising the equal value of every thread in that tapestry. And until we do, I'm telling you now, we are sliding down a very slippy path where the ground beneath us will go. You will lose the ground beneath you with every step you take, unless inclusion becomes at the fore of your agenda. We've got a direct choice now. I have a direct choice. We can leave the 1 in 5 behind and exclude ourselves from our own future. Because remember, either a loved one or someone that we know is really going to have to get with a program. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, how this is being put firmly into our hands. So we can leave the 1 in 5 behind and exclude ourselves from our own future. Because remember that actually this agenda is everybody's agenda. At some point in the future, it will become your agenda. It is my agenda. It is everybody's agenda on this stage. But to solve this, compassion and inclusion is the only way to get the ground under us more solid again. And we need to do that. To do that, we need to learn how to belong. So, who am I going to go to? Have a guess. Brené Brown. And for anyone that knows me, Brené Brown is somebody that I talk about just now and again. Connection is why we are here. It gives that purpose, that meaning to our life. Those protective characteristics, those protective factors that stop us being one of those 20 people today, or somebody we love, or somebody that works for us, or somebody we read about. Making that decision today. Our one-to-one connections are our lifeline. They're not just our happiness, they're also for our health. Think of them as those threads that weave into that tapestry of our life. Well, I can't do this alone. If I know that that has to be our starting point, I have to begin with the end in mind. And the end in mind is that's when inclusion is what it is. It already is. It's a foregone conclusion. That's the end of it. It's a global pandemic. It's the only one I'm going to be part of. And it's the only one you're going to be part of. Because the others don't exist. Not really. And I can't do it alone. So if I begin with, it has to be that way, there is no choice, we have to create a world inclusively that's built from the bottom up, that actually it's created with inclusion, with the end in mind, that it's, that we bolt on right now, but we re-establish how we create things, and we create them with everyone in mind. That's it, inclusion by design, not as an afterthought. So we know that's in place and we're going to move towards that. Given that, what's the next thing? Well, but given that it's got to be there, okay, done. How? So we know the what, but what about the how? Well, the how is I can't do it on my own. So therefore, ipso facto, if I'm going to talk about belonging, I have to talking about us all belonging. Because if we all have to be at the table and we all have to belong, then we all have to think about all of us belonging. Therefore, we have to harness the collective. So it's everybody's agenda. That's my logic. And competition is dead. And if you don't think it is, have a look outside. Have a look at how much it is to go and buy something that's plastic now and where it came from. Competition is dead, because effectively, if you're going to make a choice, as opposed to just be fed things irrelevantly without making a choice, then collaboration is the way forward. The best place in Cardiff for me, is when I go by the castle walls, and I will be there today. I've got my hair appointment booked in a very small independent salon that gave a shit enough to let me in. Sorry, but they do. They've got a ramp. They care about washing my hair. They welcomed me, so I'm spending my money there. And I'm also going around what they call, I think they call them the lanes in New York, in Meadowhall, in Cardiff, I don't know, but they're behind the walls of the opposite the castle, and all those independent shops are people I am collaborating with, individuals who have cared about the collective. I think when I go round those places, I did in Islington, if you've had a look at my Instagram, and you should if you haven't, because there's some interesting reflections there. In Islington, I spent my money in the gallery there, the Chinese gallery. I think it's Japanese. Sorry, it might be Japanese gallery. Yeah, it is Japanese. My apologies. The Japanese gallery there, and then I ended up in Trafalgar Square actually at an event. It's the power of us sharing our collective knowledge, our working together, that will create these changes that we need to see. And I'm coming into the last 5 minutes. So this collective wisdom, because it isn't just about what I know. And somebody in the audience that talks about that, his mum and dad. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And it is only through that collective that we can get to know what each other knows. So back to that rich tapestry of life. How do we derive? How do we create? How do we instigate? How do we command actually our own collective? I'm my own multidisciplinary team. I'm chronically sick and disabled. I move through the world in a wheelchair. I feel nothing on the left-hand side from the waist down now. I passed away during COVID. I died in the hospital. I had double pneumonia, double pleurisy. My heart stopped, and I took another year and a half to get out of my hospital bed. I've got a chest infection at the moment. How do I ensure that people care about this? Because if the workplace isn't inclusive, I can't go to work. If I don't get the tube, we can put a man on the moon, and we can't put me on the tube yet. And yet I know I have to go to Westminster. I was at Westminster last Friday, and I couldn't get across Jubilee Bridge because the bridge had one end had a lift that was working with no sign to say the other end wasn't. When I got right across the Thames, the other end wasn't, and nobody cared. And it looked like it had been like that for months. So if I'm going to go and be involved, belong in business in the UK, then the first thing that needs to be tackled is my freedom, our freedom, everybody's freedom, because we're all going to need it eventually. Helen Keller, who you might know, was like Trey, couldn't see. She said, alone we can do very little, but together we can do so much. And it is the synergy of diverse minds, of people that have that lived experience, that understand the other perspective, with backgrounds and experiences like that, that propels societies and organisations to move forward. And we have to. We have to. It's not something we can negotiate anymore. It's been law for 25 years. The time has come. I'm done. It's finished. We only have to look at the women's vote. We wouldn't imagine not giving women a vote now. Well, I can already see a world where we don't imagine that I can't get into Parliament by the front door. I'm sorry. By the way, number 10 has managed to get themselves a ramp. So, whoop, whoop. Well done. Thank you for that. I'm very, very grateful, and I hope I can take that edge of sarcasm away and eventually just be really happy that we're moving things forward, because there's 7 ways I'm just going to share very quickly, and they are, of how diversity and inclusion initiatives can help us. We just need, I say we, I was talking to Dan from Neurodiversity in Business in Westminster last week, and Dan talked about employee resource groups, which sound great. They're a bit of a buzzword. I think that actually we maybe do need employee resource groups. That's when people get together and talk about their lived experience. But I think employees need paying to go to those resource groups. I think they need to be paid, they need to be recompensed, and not just seen as a resource, but actually as a rich and diverse collective wisdom that will create change. We also need to embrace mentorship and allyship. And I have amazing, incredible coaches and mentors, including Dale and Pete. And if you don't know them, you should. They're incredible, and I am honoured. I have a fantastic, fantastic supervising therapist called Jilly. And, you know, we are our own group. My staff members, my workers that work with me, I could not do this on my own. You know, we need to embrace that mentorship with each other, peer mentorship, group membership, getting that as supervisor. If you're in a profession and you don't have a clinical supervisor, what are you doing? Come on. We need to embrace that mentorship, that allyship, because it's only when we reflect with each other that we can truly see what we're doing and maybe see some of that unconscious bias that we all have, all of us. That's how we bridge the gap to foster inclusion. So we have to make inclusion on everybody's agenda. To do that, I have to tell people about the Access to Work scheme, but more than that, I have to tell people about what I've been saying for the last 2 years, which is that the Access to Work scheme is a vehicle by which the government are going to make me, the disabled individual, and many more of us, as the vehicle that will remove, that will help, that will support, that will lift up, whichever way you want to look at it, the 1 in 5 from workfulness or from incapacity benefit, or ESA, as the government call it. Access to Work Plus is the vehicle that they want innovation. It used to be, it's a deleted chapter actually, in the Access to Work guidance for staff members. It's a deleted chapter, but it used to be called the Transitional Support Fund, and you heard it here first. We are now being given a vehicle to invest in training and promote that understanding and empathy. We're going to be putting on employer awareness programs, because if you haven't already got one, a disability employment initiative, then you need one. And when I say you need one, you're going to have to get one. And whilst it's voluntarily now, and people are responding and reporting voluntarily to government, and there are many organisations that are doing so, and we're one of them, but you're going to have to anyway. And you're not going to want to navigate this stuff alone. I find it challenging, and I am one. And to do that, we have to create these open dialogues, these spaces. Employee resource groups are all right, and business collectives, you know, we're becoming part of the agenda now. But I said to Dan at Westminster, what if, Dan? What if I was seen as a fully functioning, a fully fledged human? What if, as a disabled person, I was actually seen as a fully fledged, fully functioning human that has the same right to explore and experience as other people? What if we didn't just see me as a resource? What if we saw me as somebody with the same rights as everybody? And he said, that's an important narrative to put on the agenda. And I said, no, Dan, no, it is the agenda. So I think in order that everyone can participate and contribute today, we do need these disability employment programs. We do need these disability employment initiatives. We do need inclusion specialists going into business and explaining what's going to happen, because we will be employing disabled people whether we actually want to or not. And as we embrace inclusion, we will then have a diverse populace that reflects society. And when society reflects society, I promise you, society will then become a society that we can tolerate, we want to live in, and we flourish. The ripple effect of inclusion is not just checking boxes. It's getting a strategic advantage. You know, Richard Branson said, and he's a controversial chap, clients don't come first, workers do. Because if you take care of your workers, then they will take care of your clients. Then, of course, your needs are met too. So I think inclusion's about all of us, and it's definitely one to have on your agenda. And when Dan from Neurodiversity in Business, who I very much respect, says that it's an important narrative to have on the agenda, I say to him, I'm sorry, Dan, but we need to move to a place where It is the agenda. I am a fully functioning human being. Whether or not I use a wheelchair, whether I'm not dyslexic, whether or not I talk the same way, whether I talk the same language, whether I have the same skin colour, whether or not my orientation is the same, whether or not I look like you, sound like you, am you, I am entitled to a space, a place at the table. I'm entitled on the tube. I'm entitled to have the same experience opportunities as you. And so inclusion's a foregone conclusion. We have to do it together. To do that, we have to understand it. To do that, you have to find out. That's what we're doing together. I'm really grateful for those that haven't been here before. It's great to see everybody, and I'm very, very excited to have this conversation. We are going to go only to 9 o'clock. I have a head and foot massage today, a hair appointment, and just generally a day of me, of reading The Story of the Cell. I'm reading at the moment. For people that don't know that book, they should go and look for it. And I am very much concentrating on myself. But first of all, I'm concentrating on the collective, and that's us. So talking about us, remember, us is right in the middle of inclusion. Marie, how do you think we harness the collective, and how are you today?
I'm very well, lovely. That was powerful. Do you know what it did? The thing that struck a chord with me was when you mentioned about the hairdressers that you went to, because they made you feel like you belonged. And I think that when we look out at the world and you know, anything of deep meaning or that's created some lasting change, you know, people have been deemed to be thinking outside of the box, right? But when you think about it, their ethos for any great leaders or any the people that have created this lasting change in the world, they fostered a sense of belonging. When you strip it all down, they've all had that same derivative running through their mission, their agenda, whatever you want to call it, is this sense of belonging. And, you know, this bottom-up approach, it's hair-raising stuff, right? We've had a hair-raising year, Mandy-Jayne, and we know where we're heading. We absolutely know where we're heading. And it has to start. I believe in Richard Branson's ethos that it does start with your workers, because when when you're fostering that sense of belonging and you're creating that psychological safety, it makes you want to do better and be better. And life's an education, right? It's constant education. Every experience is there to teach us. But I really believe, like in my heart and soul, we're indoctrinated from a very, very young age with a system that unfortunately is not always serving us. And I had a very interesting, and I'll leave it on this actually, I had a very interesting conversation with my 14-year-old son this week, because you're very aware that my health took a dive this week, and he's had to take time off school, and I felt incredibly guilty and cried, and we had the conversation together, and he said, Mum, I said, what's school teaching you, Jack? And he's listening to me now actually, and he said, Mum, school's teaching me that it's absolutely killing my imagination. And it's teaching me to shut up and put up. And it's teaching me that if I don't get these grades, I'm going to become someone they're telling me who I'm going to become. When actually, in truth, Mum, I know the truth of who I am, and I know the truth of who I can be. And that's the most important thing. So please don't worry about me having time off school, because I know who I am. And that's really important, isn't it? Because in that sentence, it encapsulates belonging. And I think the greatest belonging is when we belong to ourselves, because when we belong to ourselves, we can start to belong to others.
Absolutely. And actually, the moment you belong to yourself, and you accept who and what and how you are, and that's what I see with Jack. I see a deep sense of acceptance from his mum in her own challenges, and I'm going through that now with my kids, right? My youngest really is not impressed with the way that I've raised them, and they're going through their process, and I see that you've managed actually to accept yourself as you've raised your children, maybe a little earlier than I did. And as a result, Jack's watched that and been able to watch that in you. And what I hear in him is the gravitas of his knowing. And I think that came from not just his knowing, but that of his older brother. And I think that the lessons that they've been able to lend to each other are greater than you even know right now. But what I see in that is a great acceptance, just like I accept the fact that I was not prepared for parenthood. My parents were not well parented, and as a result, they didn't have the lessons, the life. They didn't have the connection. Actually, they didn't have the sense of belonging that they should have had. And we've had to foster our own sense of belonging. I've had to foster, I'll speak from the I, my own sense of belonging. And as somebody who moves differently through the world, and I was born with disabilities, I have duplex kidneys, I should have been a twin. I've had major operations all my life. Went into a wheelchair 17 years ago. It's been a struggle. I've died a number of times. I've had to move differently in different ways, work from home, work from hospital, work in offices, accommodate my needs. And doing that takes a great deal of self-acceptance, but I think you did it much earlier than me. Indeed, you're much younger than I am, Marie. So I'm honoured to have you working alongside me, in that you teach me every day as you sit alongside your kids and show them who and what and how you are. And I'm not so sure I'm quite that advanced yet. But what I see in Jack is that he can see the gravitas of how you've become. And to be honest, when we hide that from each other, that's when we prevent each other from seeing the lessons that we've got. And I don't think we can learn about things from each other. We can't learn to do things from each other. We've got to go through our own journey. But when we watch other people, it can give us some indicators, some markers on the path of maybe where we don't want to go, or maybe where we do want to go. And so I think when we hide that process, then we hide it from ourselves, we hide it from each other, and we prevent people maybe getting some opportune moments to reflect when we do. And then I think we miss the point. So I think the process is the point, and therefore belonging is beginning to belong to self once we can reflect how we are in relation to others. Because I was just always felt I had to do better, stronger, longer, faster, be the best and stop failing and just get up and get on with it. Well, that's not always how we feel belonging. And onto the Access to Work program, we've said it's been a hair-raising 6 months, but the Access to Work Plus program that we're now going to be working with is just an honour, because actually we get to help co-create with the very people who want to be helped to co-create a future that they see as a life worth living, with the support that they deem is necessary for them to be lifted from where they were left. Because let's remember, we left people, we left the 1 in 5, we left us, we were left on the road. So as we come along and people either pick us up or we pick ourselves up, or we move along that road to one of the pickup points, which will be accessibility partners, it will be inclusion, it will be our togetherness. Then we need to know what we're doing with those people, and that's co-creation. We get the chance to do that, to co-create that future. And it's an honour that from the bottom up, from who and what and how we are, we can say to people, listen, there have been thousands of examples like this. What we on? I don't know how many. I don't know. But we've got a lot of Omeos going under a lot of people's bums. And they're all going to be at the tube station arguing about the fact that dancing in front of the tube station isn't going to cause public unrest. It's just going to do a dance in some wheelchairs to show people that we have personal mobility devices that's hands-free. The fact that might just help people understand how it is not to be able to get on the tube is a different story. We don't have to chain ourselves to railings now, I don't think. But if we have to, of course, we have people that already do that for a living. Anarchists, I think they call them. And we're happy to employ them if we must, but I'd rather not. I'd just rather dance my way, to be honest. I think Pete Cohen's got it going on, because he's promoted this week dance walking. Now, I've got a better one from that. We've got dance rolling. So just a sexier way to move through the world. And I've got multicolored Omeos. You know, I realise you can have multicolored people, Pete, but they're just not the same colour scheme. My colour scheme's just better. And the roll walking. I don't know about roll walking. Roll dancing is definitely the way forward in an Omeo. And those people that haven't got an Omeo, they're going to want one, even if they've got legs that work. And I reckon on the Access to Work Plus scheme, Omeos are going to be front and centre for those people that need legs that roll. Legs that roll? I'm not sure that works. Christian, you want an Omeo and you can walk. I know you do.
Oh, yeah. I tried an Omeo there. Homework was all right. I'm going down. It was quite particularly when I'm going up. Yeah, but I just came back to everything you were saying. I mean, I've said it before hundreds of times, and I'll say it again hundreds of times. But you know, through growing up, through life, I mean, the collective was how I was brought up. It's how we brought up in the family. Everybody helped each other. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was the odd sort of, you know, argument with people between the family, but you know, that pretty much, you know, we always said that, you know, the family could argue if the cows come home between themselves, but if there was an external pressure, everybody lined up and dealt with the problem. And so, and I think that's one of the great awakenings was sort of when you start going out into the real world, when you find that, you know, some people don't believe in the collective, and they don't believe that, you know, if I help you, you help me, and it really genuinely gave me a bit of a problem. It gave me a bit of a problem to look at people and say, why are we not all working together for the common good here? why? You know, I don't mean, you know, that we won't go down political views, but you know, it everything you know me, everything that I stand for, everything I believe in is the common good for the betterment of, you know, society, and you know, and so I don't understand. And in business, when you belong, when you're not, you know, in our organisation, and I can only speak properly about our organisation, so what I understand, but we genuinely care about each other. All of us, we genuinely, you know, love is not too strong a word. We love each other, and we
do,
and we work with each other for the betterment of you know, the people that we work, clients, and ourselves, to bring ourselves up, and then for the wider greater good, and that's how it's done. And I can't. And in business, surely that's the best way to go. Surely that's the only way to go. If you know, everybody needs to, you know, make money in this life, because that's the way it's programmed. That, you know, it's the way it's gone, and it's always been. But if you can do it in a way that helps everybody else to then bring themselves up, and we bring everybody up as one, well, then surely it's got to be, that's the best way to do it. So if we, you know, the collective power of us, and because with everybody I know on this stage, in this room, so I'm confused with LinkedIn versus Clubhouse, but anyway, anybody, you know, here, is hugely powerful. It's hugely powerful, because we have a collective endeavour moving forward too. But that collective endeavour is just to make it a bit better for everybody and make everybody be able to contribute. As we said before, like you said about going to the shops today, so that we can then just play our part in society and spend the money we think goes around in a big circle, and it brings everybody else up as well. So I don't see anybody can disagree with it. You know, we harness it, you know, if we can harness the powers that we have as a collective, and everybody wins. There's absolutely no downside to it at all. So, you know, it baffles me that anybody would even sort of put a roadblock in the way, but they do. There are roadblocks there. You know, people think about things, you know, I don't know about that, or I don't know if you can do that. You know, I've said loads of times about things that happened. But me going to university, I could have gone to university. I probably should have. I should have gone to university out of school. But the attitude was, "Oh, you're not going to university, are you?" Oh, no. And it gets, when you're in your formative years at school, that gets into your psyche, and it even the strongest willed, it becomes the narrative. And so we've got to get out of this. And I don't know whether, because I've not been in that situation for 25 years, but I don't know if it's still the case, but it was very much the case that you were pigeonholed in education, not in a derogatory way necessarily, but just everybody has judgments, and I was quite surprised that certain teachers, and they let their judgment and their prejudice, maybe that's too strong a word, but their preconception come forwards to the person, and that colour their attitude towards them. Now that's not every teacher I come across, don't get me wrong, but they steer your life because they you obviously you're being taught, and you go through what was I, 13 years in education. That has an impact on your outlook, and it's very difficult, which is to, especially in the modern world in any time, but it's very difficult to then, when you come out of that, find the right niche that allows you to flourish, and that allows the people around you to flourish. When you've got a disability, no matter what that disability is, because it's disability, as we said before, is as much about other people disabling you with their attitudes. In fact, quite a substantial amount of it is as much as what you can't do, because we can all adjust, and we can all. Okay, I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy at all, but you find ways around things. We all find ways around things. But if somebody who can lift you up, who can put you into a work situation, if they can't mentally adjust to that, then it doesn't really matter what you do, you can't then move forward. So I don't want to speak too long, but going back, and it's so good, our collective, our harnessing our collectives, because we all understand. And then when we work with other people, we understand we're not judging them on there. We're helping them to fulfill their purpose, is that right? But fulfill their dreams is about a word. Fulfill what they want to be and be part of society and be part of everything. And even saying that we're helping people be part of society really is wrong. We shouldn't have to ever help somebody be part of society because they are society. Just because they've got a label or they've got something, we're the collective. Quite levelers again, but we are without people, no matter who they are, but what there isn't anything. And so the more you can harness the power of people, the more everybody moves forward, everybody wins, the shops win, the businesses win, the government wins in tax. And so, that's I've got up for my soapbox now, so we need to harness, we are harnessing the power of everybody, everybody's betterment. And I can't think much better than that.
I can't think much better than you. I'll tell you what, Christian, hearing your voice, I don't know whether anyone here wants to feed in, and if they do, please, maybe Tryon wants to when I do finish waxing lyrical, because I'll tell you this, your voice is powerful. Your experience is second to none. I'm going to share a little bit because Christian has a brain injury at birth, and he uses one side of his body more effectively than the other, and one of his hands is not possible to be used in any sort of effect. And his walking's challenged, his mobility's challenged, and he came out of school. He wasn't given any advice. He was dumped really by the career service. He didn't manage to move into workfulness. His family culture, remember, as we talked about earlier, Margaret Mead, that controversial anthropologist who was hoodwinked, she looked at family and said that adolescence didn't happen at a critical time. It just was a culture. And Christian talked about the culture in his family, where everybody looked after everybody, aunties, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, everybody worked together. And when he looked outside, he didn't understand why people didn't work for the collective, why people didn't have that harnessing the collective attitude. Well, it's because culturally they'd been trained differently. And for Christian now to feel included, to be involved, to be included in society, even though we are society, right? That needed a set of ways of moving through the world that helped him get what he needed to be able to do what he's doing today. And it took us about 1.5 years. For Trey, it's still taking. And it's an ongoing thing with Christian, over 2 years. And with Marie, I'd say over 1 year as well. For me, it took me 14 months before Access to Work responded, because it was during the pandemic. And I was working for an employer as I died, and everything I had to be sold so I could start again. And I was working for an employer, and it took 14 months for Access to Work to come back. Now, I understand the statistics that are around about disabled people, and this isn't what the room's about. It's about how do we foster the collective. But in order to foster the collective, we need everybody to be able to get where they need to go. And Christian's talked about the fact that even the attitude at school prevented him from believing that he was belonging or that he was included. And in fact, I was watching, I don't know who I was watching the other day. He said that when they began, I'll tell you who it was. It was a gentleman who I'm still thinking about. It was a gentleman that passed away a couple of weeks ago. It was Jürgen who said that when he became blind, he didn't feel that he was wanted in the workplace, and indeed he was sacked. And it was Amazon that took him on as their inclusion and diversity director, manager, person, human, eventually. But he felt that he didn't belong the moment he became disabled in the world. So we do need to foster inclusion, and it's for our greater good. And Margaret Mead noticed that it was cultural, and that we can shape and affect society by the cultural impact that we have, which is why we need to harness the power of the collective and show them how to have non-replicating, cost-effective, joined-up services. That's what we're doing right here, right now. Thank you, Christian, because you're an example of when somebody is allowed a voice, important things said. And that narrative becomes, as Dan said, an important narrative on the agenda. Well, it is the narrative. Including and belonging is the only way to foster a society that lifts everyone up. So I'm grateful to you. We are approaching the end. We're getting on to the 9 o'clock, but we finish before we go to final closing remarks with a fantastic human who's been in business now just over 1 year, I think. Who I'm not sure thought that he'd be a company director or be doing what he's doing now, but he is. Trey, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, good morning. Very interesting room today, MJ. And I want to say something to close, I think, because we've got lots of people here who you've spoken to and who've spoken from accessibility partners who work with the company, but we've also got lots of people up on the stage who have done very well in business and very well in their respective fields, so that's brilliant. But one of the things that I will say, inclusion and belonging must start with everybody embracing everyone else's perspective, even if they don't necessarily agree with it. That's the hardest thing to do, because what Christian points out earlier on when he says, well, why are these people saying, we can't help? Why are they saying? They are saying it simply because they can't embrace another person's perspective. They have not taken the time to understand it at any kind of level. The more we understand other people's perspectives, we don't just discount it, because when you say, oh, well, you can do that if you want, but it won't help you, yeah, well, you can know if you're kind of discounting another person's perspective. And there are a lot of polite ways to discount another person's perspective. And they're not rude, but they're still discounting another person's perspective. So the key thing to make everyone feel included, first off, is to say, we listen to you and we understand your perspective. And then we introduce another perspective if needed. If not, we say, yeah, brilliant, we agree with your perspective, let's all go and do the thing. But I would highly encourage anybody in business, and this includes me too, because I'm the example. Yeah, and sometimes I don't always get it right. Sometimes I listen to people and think, oh, what are you saying? What do you mean? It's like, well, no, just take a step back, listen to everyone else's perspective, include their perspective. When you do that, you will encourage people to belong and encourage people to be included. Yeah, that's my take, if nobody minds.
Thank you, Trey. You know, what you remind me of is the beginning of where this week's theme came from, which is the concept of holism, where the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, and that's what's happened on this stage this morning. What I said, in my opinion, was fairly thin in comparison to the rich tapestry that we've woven here this morning. I believe that synergy, that energy of our collective understanding, where all those specialisms come together, where the energy of this room comes together, right? Even those that aren't speaking, it's our very collective thought that is alchemy. I think that's the magic ingredient, because what we've said today, what you said today, the impact of Christian having a job, of Marie, you know, working with people, and we know how many people we're working with in the coming week. We know how many lives we're changing. We know how many mobility devices that are going to be granted. We know how many people's lives are going to be emancipated by this magic that is us. When people listen to your music, and there are musicians that are blind like you that can use music equipment because you've helped make it accessible, when the world of music changes because you helped it change, I know that the I am is just no longer possible in the entirety. We've got too much to know. You know, it was a Nobel Prize winner that said in 1976 that, you know, there was so much, I think it was 76, that we knew too much then. There was too much to know for one person to ever know it. So the we still isn't enough. It's not enough, is it, Trey? If it's just you and me. If it was just you and me fighting this, doing this, including this, we're noodled. No, he swore that for the second time this morning. The us in inclusion is what we've got to have. The we's just not enough. It's not. Me and you ain't enough. Me and Marie ain't enough. The we excludes for me. So inclusion where everyone's seen as valuable and engages in these questions that you've, you know, posited. I also posit for weeks to come. I'd like people to start thinking about this. What specific initiatives have you seen that actually promote belonging in your workplace? And I'm going to invite people to bring their own from our workplaces, because I'm happy to showcase it. I'm happy to showcase about, you know, when there's a time when, I don't know, I've broken down in a meeting. That's happened. And I'm okay with that. Where those personal stories of one-to-one connection change lives. The person that I mentioned to on the train about what access to work is, and 6 months later I realised that actually now them and most of their family are working and earning and moving into spaces and places that actually make their life a life that they deem as worth living. And I'd like to think about how we infuse innovation into our diversity and inclusion strategies. If you don't have a disability employment initiative, what are you doing? And if it's not really very sexy, what are you doing? Because we've got to make disability sexy. We're all going to get disabled, frankly, unless we die in our sleep. That's a harsh reality. And then how do we measure it? What do we measure it? Well, because I'll tell you how I measure it. I measure it with the lives that I can definitely tell you have altered, probably for the better, as a result of them becoming more inclusive with themselves, bringing themselves into the agenda. Remember that unless we make it this agenda ours, harnessing the collective, we are exiting ourselves from the agenda. We're literally exiting ourselves, but we can't do it on our own. We said today that actually we have a direct choice where we leave the 1 in 5 behind or we include them in our thinking. Connection is why we're here. It gives us purpose and meaning. And I think our legacy, if we have moved beyond that kind of, you know, kid mode, maybe we've had our kids and we want to know what the hell we're leaving. Our legacy should be leaving the world a more inclusive space, because we all know somebody that we want including. We've all got kids or family members or loved ones or people we've fallen in love with or people who are in our lives that we want including that aren't being included. Maybe if you know me, it might be a bit irritating to you that I can't get across London to get to Westminster to go and say what I need saying, because I can't get on the tube and I can't get a taxi and the lift doesn't work and the bridge is broken. Just saying. Maybe that's a bit irritating. If it is, this is your agenda. And if it is, then we need to work together. So we are here on a Saturday at 8 o'clock. It's been fantastic. We've been talking about how we harness the collective. And I think that's what we're doing here. Remember that holism is when the synergy of those ideas come together. But you need an alchemist. That's the magic ingredient. The I am's no longer possible. We have to be talking about inclusion. It's a global pandemic that's yet to happen, but we're on our way. I've already seen it as a foregone conclusion. And we need to know how to do it when we get there and how we're going to tell the government to do it through this new Access to Work Plus programme for that 1 in 5 who are in receipt. It's a very special criteria just before you go. You need to be in receipt of PIP, Personal Independence Payment, or DLA, Disabled Living Allowance. And you also have to be in receipt of long-term incapacity benefit or employment support allowance. If that's the case, you're going to be put on voluntarily at first an Access to Work programme plus, Access to Work plus. And if you choose to, it's a pretty banging deal. It's certainly a better bid deal than having your ESA ripped away in 2028. So we've got 5 years, 3 years to put it into place, 2 years to get on with it. We've got 2 years to make this programme robust and get everybody on the train. And then we've got 3 years to work out how we get society to include us. And then by 2028, well, all employees and all employers will have changed their heart and their mind shift, where they harness the collective and realise we all need a seat at the table. It's very exciting. We've got 5 years, guys. It sounds like a long time, but it isn't. It starts here and it starts now and it starts with you. We'll be here next Saturday morning. I'm in LinkedIn, and at 6 o'clock, very bright and early, because I'm a lady that gets up very early, 6 o'clock on Clubhouse on Monday morning, prior to Pete Cohen's Monday Mindset Room. So if you want to hear all the latest gossip, and Mondays is going to be about the Clubhouse gossip, what's going on, what's happening in relationships, what's going down. Really, you know, we're a family over there. So if you want the family down and dirty happenings and come and share, then Monday morning at 6 o'clock, we're going to be on Clubhouse. And we will be back here next Saturday on LinkedIn. It's already 6 minutes past. I'm going to run away because I've got an appointment with a masseur and with a hairdresser and with myself for today. Today I'm having a date with myself and maybe a date with somebody else later on. All right, I love you all very much. For those that haven't caught up with me this week, just give me a message. And those that are new here, hey, welcome. We're out of Clubhouse. We've escaped. Inclusion is also going to be restarting because we've had a hiatus after the hand cycle marathon. I've had a couple of weeks where I just took a moment on a Monday night. So if you want to know about that, come along on Monday morning at 6 o'clock, and then you can hear about what's happening with inclusion, specifically with inclusion on Monday night. But if you want to be on LinkedIn, Saturday at 8 o'clock next week, it'll be Belonging in Business. And I think we've got a pretty special guest. So if you want to know, come along and see. It's very exciting. We are getting some exciting people in our midst. I'm very excited. Take care, everyone. Have an absolutely fantastic week. Thanks for being here. It's been great. We've been on LinkedIn and we've been live everywhere else. Please share this space with other people, and let's really harness the collective as we learn to belong to ourselves, to our families, to each other, and in business. I'm very grateful to you all. Bye-bye. And to all you guys. Oh, I'm going to say bye-bye to you guys too. Thank you for being here. It's been fantastic. You've been in Belonging in Business. We've been talking about harnessing the collective. And I believe that what we're doing here, sharing it wide and far and wide, is harnessing that collective. Have a great week, everyone. Blessings. Bye-bye.